Ilia Topuria takes out Bryce Mitchell. That was an excellent performance from Ilia. I think he's, a damn good fighter. This was really impressive to get a second round submission, to get any submission over Bryce, even though it's still the only way he's lost, meaning it might be his thing. But I thought Ilia won this fight every which way. He was doing really well in the wrestling, really well in the stand up, and to finish it off with a submission was really impressive. Because as I said coming into this, he had his first 7 wins via submission, and then his next 5 wins were via KO and 1 decision. Seemed like he'd gotten away from his chokes. And here he just made it happen. I mean, he was beating Bryce down. I did think Bryce was on his way to losing the fight, being finished, I should say, via strikes. He was definitely losing the fight, but I thought Ilia was going to get him out of there. But I thought it would be, again, with strikes, standing up. He seemed to be battering Bryce. Bryce was beating him, battered him, bloody and whatever. But he made it happen on the ground. Ilia Topuria showed a lot of strength, first of all. I mean, that guy is strong as fuck. And just overwhelming technique. He locked that arm triangle up, and I knew it was over from the second he pinched, he cinched that arm tight. He didn't even rip Bryce to the mat. That guy is a serious choke artist, again, in the good sense, and I was happy to see him return to his choking ways. He's got a really good ground game, I think. And even though, like I said, he's trending towards one way, which is being a guy who cracks on the feet with absurd power, and he's got good anti-wrestling. But in this fight, Bryce Mitchell, who just might, be the toughest guy, he's got a damn good chin on him. Ilia Topuria found another way to beat him, and it was even more impressive, I want to say, than finishing him with strikes. Bryce Mitchell, he didn't look bad in here. He did look bad, I guess, but he was still throwing hard in round 2. I thought he had a chance of making something happen with his strikes. He's a longer, taller guy, but even though he was throwing hard in round 2, Ilia was just gaining and gaining on him with every minute in that fight, and Bryce looked a little more desperate towards the end. And, when Bryce, you would think he had his grappling to rely on in those moments of duress. He didn't. His grappling was his weakness. It became his weakness in that moment with Ilia pancaking him to the floor and just really muscling him around. And turns out to be a really tough matchup for Bryce Mitchell. Bryce is still awesome, though. And, look, Ilia is still immaculate as a fighter. So this win, I think it's this loss, I should say, for Bryce, it's probably going to age well. And I think the win for Ilia Topuria is probably going to age well as well, because Bryce Mitchell's not done, not by a long shot. So someone's O had to go, again, if you don't count the Ultimate Fighter. And speaking of which, Ilia Topuria found the O, found the finish in the same way that Bryce was defeated on the Ultimate Fighter, with a third-round submission, I think. Oh, no, second-round submission for this one, but third-round submission for that one. Regardless, he was submitted deeper into the fight, and with the damage Ilia Topuria was doing on him, this was pretty much like a third-round submission. He beat him into the third round, pretty much, damage-wise. So I don't know if that made any sense, but it made sense to me. I'm aware he was finished in round 2. Forget about it. But great fight overall. We learned a lot about both guys, and I thought, especially with Ilia Topuria, a lot of positives to take away. This guy showed he can be in the middle of a tough matchup, and he only gets stronger as the fight goes on. I was wondering who would wilt over time, and I did think it would depend mostly on who was winning the grappling battle. But Ilia Topuria seems to have really good cardio. Again, I didn't like the way he looked in round 3 versus Yusuf Zalal, but he might have just been taking his foot off the gas because he did so well in rounds 1 and 2. And here he looked really good deep into the fight, and the fucking sky's the limit. All right, like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.